Hello and welcome to this edition of FS MaNiA. Today we are located in the great state of Alaska on the remote and scenic Aleutian Island of Unalaska, otherwise known as Dutch Harbor. The Dutch Harbor scenery we are using is developed and available from Aerosoft. We flew into Dutch Harbor a couple of weeks ago in Coronado's Hawker jet, the 850 XP. If you haven't already seen that video, you can check it out under the Hawker playlist on the homepage of the FS MaNiA channel. Our aircraft for today's flight is the newly released and impeccably modeled A2A Simulation's Piper Comanche. This beautiful polished aluminum repaint of the Comanche is by a chap named Alan W., whose username is 8055, and you can find him and samples of his work by checking in over at the A2A Comanche support forum. Our flight today is a 177 nautical mile hop northward to another isolated island in the Aleutian chain known as Cold Bay, Alaska. Cold Bay's remote location and excellent airport facilities make this World War II era landing strip one of the only airports to serve as a hub for passenger flights in these distant reaches of the Alaskan Peninsula. Due to a relatively long runway, the fifth longest in the entire state of Alaska, Cold Bay also serves and has been used for an emergency landing field for aircraft flying over this rugged terrain and desolate North Pacific region. The Cold Bay scenery you're seeing is basically FSX default scenery enhanced with Orbix's FTX Global and FTX Vector add-ons. The Piper PA-24 Comanche is a 4-seat, low-wing, retractable gear light aircraft powered by a 250 horsepower Lycoming engine with a variable pitch constant speed propeller. The FAA defines any aircraft powered by an engine rated over 200 horsepower as a high-performance aircraft and requires a pilot to obtain special training and a high-performance logbook endorsement prior to acting as pilot in command. Further, the FAA defines an aircraft with retractable gear, flaps, and a controllable propeller as a complex aircraft, also requiring special training and a logbook endorsement by CFI. The PA-24-250 therefore requires both a high-performance and complex endorsement prior to acting as pilot command. When compared to other high-performance complex single-engine aircraft such as the Beechcraft Bonanza, the Comanche, by design, is considered to be forgiving and relatively easy to fly for low-time pilots transitioning into high-performance complex types. The Comanche sports an all-flying stabilator, as is common with many Piper aircraft, also a handsomely designed swept tail and laminar flow airfoil designed similar to the P-51 Mustang's wing. She is powered by a normally aspirated 250 horsepower Lycoming O-540 horizontally opposed direct drive 6-cylinder engine with a 77-inch diameter Macaulay 3-blade constant speed propeller. Avionics include dual Narco navcoms, the number one nav having DME capability, a Narco ADF automatic direction finder, which we will be using for navigating the first leg of our route. We also have an STEC 30 2-axis autopilot, a Century HSI horizontal situation indicator, transponder, audio panel, and marker beacons. You will notice one thing missing from the panel is a GPS. A2A includes options to configure the panel with no GPS, a GPS 295, a GNS 400, and many other popular third-party avionics are also supported. For today's flight, we've chosen the no GPS option to give us a chance to brush up on our radio navigation skills. The Comanche is 25 foot long, has a wingspan of 36 feet, and a height of 7 feet 6 inches. Maximum takeoff weight is 3,200 pounds. The Comanche's standard fuel capacity is 60 gallons carried in 2 wing tanks, which can be increased to 90 gallons if the optional tip tanks are installed as they are on our Comanche. Production of the Comanche ended in 1972 when torrential rains from Hurricane Agnes caused flooding at Piper's manufacturing plant, destroying airframes, parts, and much of the tooling necessary for production. Rather than rebuild the tooling, Piper chose to abandon production of the Comanche and Twin Comanche. A total of 4,857 Comanches were built at a cost ranging between $17,000 to $37,000 US. Factoid: country music singers Patsy Cline, Cowboy Lloyd Copus, and Hawkshaw Hawkins were on board a Comanche owned and piloted by Cline's manager, Randy Hughes, when it crashed in bad weather near Camden, Tennessee on March 5, 1963, killing all on board. And on that note, climb aboard, buckle up, and let's go fly to Cold Bay in some hard IFR weather. I want to take just a minute to brief our route of flight. We're looking at a low altitude en route chart for IFR flights, and you can see that Dutch Harbor is down here. This magenta line is our course, and up here is Cold Bay. We are going to be flying along a airway identified as Gulf 8, which will turn here at Morty intersection and fly inbound into Cold Bay. The airway is made up of an NDB bearing, which is the reciprocal of this 207, which happens to be 027. That's the bearing we'll fly away from. This NDB down here, Dutch Harbor NDB, the frequency is 283, and it also, with that square black box there, you can tell it has a DME with it, and there's the frequency for that distance measuring equipment. And so that we can identify Morty intersection, it is 79 DME away from this station right here at Dutch Harbor. So once we track outbound to 79 DME, we'll be at Morty intersection, then we'll turn inbound on the 059 radial to the Cold Bay, I'm sorry, it's actually the, if you look up here, the Elfie NDB. So that makes up G8. And there is also DME that is located here at this VOR, which you can't quite see the symbol, but it's underneath this. So that VOR is we can use for DME to identify this intersection right here, Tuna 30 DME, which is where we'll start our descent into Cold Bay. And the other thing it does is there's a 250 radial and 10 DME. There's an intersection right here called Unit, and that's where we're going to actually begin our approach. And we're going to the approach plate, which I won't show now, but if you can look it up if you want to, is the ILS 15 approach into Cold Bay. There's a 10-mile DME arc, and we're going to fly that around to a fix over here that will intercept the ILS 15 localizer and track it inbound to the airport. Now that fix, the name of it is DEADS, DEADS, morbidly named, and but that's where we start tracking inbound. We leave the 10-mile DME arc and track inbound on the localizer. The other thing I'll point out is you'll see these numbers right here, this asterisk 5700, that is the MOCA, and there's over here it's 5300. The MOCA is the minimum obstruction clearance altitude for the airway. This number 9,000 and over here 8,000 is the MEA, or the minimum en route altitude, and that is the lowest published altitude between two radio fixes that guarantees adequate obstruction clearance and also navigation signal reception. So we're going to be flying below the MEA but above the MOCA. So what will happen is we actually will lose the signal from this NDB down here at 75 miles out, and we won't be able to pick this one up until we're 40 miles out. So these come in different strengths, kind of low, medium, and high, and so they have different ranges. The low strength NDBs are 25 nautical mile range. The mediums, I think, go out to 50, and the high strengths go out to 75, if I'm not mistaken. And the NDB signal, we'll talk more about this en route, and is a low frequency to medium frequency, and the VOR is high frequency, but they have different characteristics, line of sight versus following the curvature of the Earth. And actually the NDB, the low frequency signals, can penetrate objects, so they're good in mountainous areas and Certainly have lots of those going on around here. So you see a lot of those, and they're using them for these airways, to fly these airways. Up here, the VOR has an airway actually that comes off of it, but there's no other VORs in the Aleutians below this point, so all of these airways are made up out of NDBs, that these Gulf airways. So if you want to see this on the VFR chart, I'll show you that. Here's the VFR chart. So let me zoom it out just enough so we can see the whole route of flight. So here's Dutch Harbor right here. There's our first leg up to Morty, and then we'll be turning and flying the same airway inbound, picking up the DME radial, and then flying the ILS into Coal Bay. And just looking at around Coal Bay, there's Mount Dutton. There was an airplane that crashed on approach into Coal Bay and hit that mountain. So we're coming in from over the coastal area, sort of the west coast, and this is all low terrain over here, so nothing too much to worry about, except if we fly missed approach, we're going to be turning like this and flying back to this VOR and holding here, and then we've got to fly a long way to get to our alternate airport, which is way up here at King Salmon. I think that's it right there, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, King Salmon. So it's almost 300 miles away. We'll need a lot of extra fuel just to go to the alternate. The other thing I can point out is there's some volcano peaks right here. You can see on Unalaska Island, and one of the peaks, right, this one is over 9,000 feet. The chart clipped off the altitude, but I know that it's over 9,000 feet. This one's 8,000, and that one is 5,400 feet. We'll see those actually peeping up above the clouds, but we won't be able to see the island itself because of the cloud cover. So that's the briefing on the route, and I say now, let's go fly. Hello and welcome aboard FS MaNiA's flight from Dutch Harbor to Coal Bay, Alaska in the A2A Piper Comanche. Awesome airplane, fantastic airplane. It may look a little different. The panel is what may look a little different than what you're used to flying with me. Mostly we fly I guess maybe more up to date, although we did fly the P-51 not too long ago. But this is an older panel. It's, I think, a 1958 or 59 vintage panel, and so radios are over here on the left, and our main flight instruments are off to the right just a little bit. We do have an ADF over here, and we're going to take a little bit closer look at the radio stack. So, but just as a introduction to this flight, basically what's happened is we're here in Dutch Harbor. We flew in here a couple weeks ago in the Hawker jet and been hanging out here for a couple weeks, and we were asked to fly this Comanche over to Coal Bay. It does not have a GPS. The GPS has been taken out. It was malfunctioning, so we're going to fly over to Coal Bay to get a new GPS, but we got to fly over there using the sort of old school radio navigation. And so we'll just take a little bit closer look at what we've got here on the panel in this radio stack. I'm going to go ahead and cut our master switch on, and let's go ahead and fire up our radios here, this one, and also the ADF over here. And what we're doing, we're flying IFR, and we're going to go ahead and we'll have to call with the cell phone to get our clearance. But anyway, just want to set up these radios for departure and be sure we got everything. So up here we have, let me just kind of give you a quick overview. Up here we have our marker beacons, indicators, and so when we fly an ILS, these will indicate when we pass over the outer marker and the middle marker. And this is the audio panel, and so we use that to not only for communications but for in navigation to identify the various stations that we're going to be navigating with. These are our nav comms. They're very high frequency omnidirectional radio beacons over on the nav side, and VHF communication. And also we have the ADF, which is a low frequency receiver, and it picks up NDBs, which are omnidirectional radio beacons. Am I right in saying that? Or non-directional, I'm sorry, not omni, but non-directional radio beacons. So basically, we don't fly radials, we fly bearings to and from the station. And so we're going to be using that to navigate out of here. I've gone over the flight plan with you, and you've seen that, so we'll set everything up. Okay, so just starting over here, our comm frequency right now is over on 121.4, which is actually Anchorage Center, and we're going to want that to be, that's okay, we'll leave that in there, but we're going to need to put in, why don't we go ahead and put in our ASOS or AWOS here, yeah, 125 point, I believe it's 8, yep, 125.8, and we'll go ahead and get that while we're tuning these other radios, set our altimeter, so 125. The weather over in Cold Bay is forecasting for 2.5 miles visibility and a 200-foot overcast.
Papa, Alpha, Delta, Uniform, automated weather observation, 0017 Zulu. Wind, calm. Visibility, 18. Sky condition, 1,600 scattered. Ceiling, 2,600 overcast. Temperature, 8 Celsius. Dew point, 6 Celsius. Altimeter 3013. Papa Alpha Delta
Okay.
Uniform automated weather up.
So, and let's go ahead and put the common traffic advisory frequency here is 122.6. So we'll get that over here on the comm side. 122.6. There we go. So I like to set my radios up, and we'll go ahead and actually, what I want to do just to keep from actually really getting robots. There we go. So it's 12 we'll pretend 6, and this is actually 1214 Anchorage Center. And I like to set the radios up before I even start the engine, just so that when it's time to start the engine, I'm not sitting here with the engine running, fiddling with radios. I've already got those set up for departure, and I've kind of gone through the departure procedure in my mind. So with that over here, we're going to want to set this ADF up for the Dutch Harbor NDB, and that frequency is 283. So let's go ahead and tune that in here. And when we flip that in, we should see the needle swing towards the station, and it does. And we can also identify that station by just clicking on the audio panel over there and listening out for a tone. And so we'll wait to hear that broadcast every I don't know, 15 seconds. There it is right there, and you can check that's Morse code, and you can check the chart and be sure that's the proper identifier. But that lets us know the station is operating, and that's good. That's what we want. And so also on this unit here, we'll flip that off. On this unit here, you can if you notice, it's got actually DME built into it. It's got a little piece of tape there that tells us that, but we've got DME as well, and so we're going to want to tune that in. And I believe I may already have it tuned in. Let's see, the DME for, it's 113.9. Yep, that's in there. So that's co-located with the NDB. And the distance you can see is 0.6. And so that's telling me right now that the NDB and the DME are 0.6 that way, which is over there. So in fact, it's probably right there. I think we can actually even see the thing. So it's a little over half a mile away. So that distance is going to help us identify Morty. Since Morty intersection is 79 nautical miles away, we'll know when we get there based on this. So that's good to have. It does not have an identifier tone with the DME, but we can see that we're getting a reading there. So I believe that identifies it right there in and of itself. Okay, let's see if we need any other radios. We've got our center and our common traffic advisory frequency, and we've got our DME, we've got our ADF. So really, I think that's good. These down here, we'll use them later on en route and for the arrival. So I think we're all set there. And so let's go ahead and now let's cut these back off, and we'll go ahead and do a startup, go through our checklist, and we do want our master switch on. Let me just grab my checklist. We have our have checked our weather and got our fuel on board. We've basically today we've got full fuel in our main tanks and our wing tanks, and then on the tip tanks we're carrying an extra 12 gallons. So we've got 6 hours of fuel, and the reason for that is because we have it's not a very long flight. It's just an hour and maybe 15 minutes over to Cold Bay, but if for some reason we can't get in there, then we're going to need to go to the alternate, and the alternate is 300 miles away. King Salmon is the closest alternate that we could find with decent weather. So yeah, 300 more miles to the north. So that's going to be so we got plenty of fuel to go to the destination airport and the alternate. So and then some. So, and our flight plan has been filed. Seatbelt, shoulder harnesses are fastened. Fuel selectors, let's put those in the on position. There have been a few people that have tried to start this airplane without doing that, and it won't do it. There's our tip wings there, so we'll have those in reserve. And our parking brake is set. Circuit breakers, which are actually modeled in this airplane, and there's some over here, they're all in. And the radios are off. The battery master's on. And rotating beacon, I'm going to hide this just to get that on. It's right there. And mixture is in the rich position. Carb heat's cold. Let's keep it that way. Throttle, we want to open it up about 1/4 inch. Seems like you could hear this. There we go. About 1/4 inch. Propeller RPM full in. And auxiliary fuel pump, we want to cut this on. It's right here. We can hear it. And let's look in here, and we can watch our fuel pressure climbing right here. And it does. So we're going to go ahead and prime the engine. We're going to unlock it and give it about 3 good strokes here. And then we want to be sure to lock it back when we're done. And let's open up our little window here. Clear prop. So what I want to do, I want to turn it over here a couple of times just to get some oil spread around in there. Then we'll cut on our mags, and let's go ahead and fire it up. And we want to idle it up, watch our oil pressure coming up. You notice the door closes there, the prop wash, and we want to idle up about 800 RPMs to 900, somewhere in there, let it warm up. And while we're sitting here on the ground, it's a good idea to lean the mixture out just a little bit, keep from fouling up our plugs, so we'll do that. And another thing we can do is let's go ahead and plug in our headsets, because that engine is going to be noisy. It's very noisy, and so that will help right there. And now you can hear me a little better, and I can hear myself think a little better. Let's fire up our radios. We're going to bring our transponder on to the standby mode. Bring on the 2 nav comms. And we do have autopilot in this airplane, which is very nice for flying IFR. And it's, let's see, I want to get it cut on right there. So you can see it'll go through some self-test. And we can go ahead and cut on some nav lights down here. I'm going to get back on this checklist here in just a second, but I'm going to cut on things I know. And we'll leave landing light strobes, all that's off right there. So unhide that. And let me check, see how we're doing over here. Okay, looks good. So while our engine's warming up there, I'm going to cut this fuel pump off. And that way, if there's a failure, I want of the mechanical fuel pump, I want the engine to quit while I'm sitting here on the ground. I don't want it to be going just because that fuel pump's on. That's an electric backup fuel pump. And avionics are all on, panel lights are on, cabin temperature mode. I think I've got the vent pulled out over there, yeah. And let's look in here at our gauges. We've got showing a charge on our battery right now, and we've set up our our radios for departure. We do need to call and get our clearance, so I'm going to go ahead and make a real quick call over to the radio for flight, the flight service station. Stand by here. Hello, this is Comanche 59250 at Dutch Harbor, looking for IFR at Cold Bay. And he's giving me my clearance now. We're going to read it back to him. Okay, Comanche 59250 is cleared as filed to the Papa Alpha Charlie Delta Airport. Climb and maintain 7,000, squawk 0316, center is 121.4, and clearance void at 0600. Time now 05:35. Okay, thank you. All right, so we got our clearance. Let's put in our squawk code 0316. He told us to have a nice flight. They're so nice. Okay, we're on the standby mode. We'll stay there. And so we've got, it's 05:35 right now. We've got until 0600, which will be 2 o'clock. So it's an 8-hour difference. Now, actually, we're more like 12 hours behind Zulu time here. But in Alaska, they use one time zone, Alaska Standard Time or Alaska Daylight Time. So we subtract 8, and that gives it to us. We're actually going to cross a time zone going over to Cold Bay, and this clock's going to advance an hour on its own. Nothing I can do about that, but it just happens. Okay, so on departure, I'll just set up our autopilot here. The first heading we're going to fly is paralleling our course, our outbound course. Excuse me. And that is 027. So I'm going to go ahead and dial that in over here on the autopilot. Now, one thing I need to do is look up here and check this, because you can see they're different. The gyro's drifted, or the airplane's been moved. I think that's actually what's happened. So the compass is telling me the heading should be 090. So what we're going to have to do is push this in and get it over there to, I'm sorry, 080 is what the compass is reading. So let's bring this around and get it set right. So when you get to the part, check flight instruments. This is one. The other one is right here. So we can adjust this so that it looks right for level flight. And then we also have our altimeter set. So 080 is what we want right here, based on the magnetic compass. And that looks good. Here comes an airplane. And so now we want to set our heading bug over to 027 is for our departure, and it's closer this way. We'll go that. That'll parallel our course, and then we'll intercept our course 027 bearing from the NDB. Okay, so get in just a little bit tighter on that. Just make sure about right. Okay, I think that's good. All right, let's just see. For taxi, we have done everything all the way through the transponder, flight instruments, and autopilot. And let's get our taxi light on. And let's see, we'll just cut on the right one for right now. And we'll release our brake and say, so long, Dutch Harbor. Yep, there's the FBO here at Dutch Harbor. And we're going to taxi down here, down this way, to the end of runway 31. But in this scenery, you'll notice the runway is indicated as 30. And that's because this is older scenery, and it has since changed, but has not been updated as far as the scenery goes. This is some older scenery that I've had for a while. Slow myself up.